And here we are. This is the finished product. This is what they handed to me after 4 attempts to try to get it right, yet they failed even after the 4th attempt on so many different levels. Where do I even begin? And the same can happen to you regardless of type of eyewear. This can happen to sunglasses, safety glasses, prescription and non-prescription glasses, depending on the models of these a little bit, of course. And the same can happen to you regardless of location, where you shop for eyewear, whether you prefer large shopping malls, typically by retail chains, with big marketing, massive prices, huge profit margins, where the technicians plaster the walls with their certificates and qualifications. This fail can happen to you there. And conversely, if you shop for eyewear at a local corner store where a single person business, a local Joe Schmo is trying to make a living, yeah, this fail can happen to you there as well. Skills are skills, and incompetent craftsmanship is what we have here, even after 4 attempts. In this video, I'll show you what makes this a failed product. And in some cases or some sense, this is a permanently damaged, ruined product. It's not destroyed, it can still stay on your head and you can still see through it, but this is a permanently damaged product. And that can get costly because these frames can cost hundreds of dollars. So, let me show you in this video what geometric detail makes this a failed product. Let's start from simple to more complex. There are 5 levels of failure here. The first one starts with these nose pads. Now, I'm aware that on some different models the nose pad is part of the frame, it's molded differently, and it's non-removable as well as non-pivoting. On this one, the nose pads pivot as they should, and they mount with a small screw. The small screw sometimes comes out. It should be there's the small screw. It should be typically glued in place with a thread lock compound. That's how it stays in place. Now, these nose pads can get you can get them tinted to match your skin complexion. Yeah, I'm not that color. This, as is this honey color. It doesn't really match my skin complexion, and these nose pads deteriorate and discolor as they react with your sweat, the oil from your skin, and the UV radiation from the sun. So these need to be replaced. I asked that these be replaced. Yeah, they are not done. As they wear, they not only discolor, but in some cases, very often, they accumulate lint or dirt here on the surfaces here, and the lint then is sticking out, or it can look moldy or get moldy because silicone is I'm not saying it's a porous material, but so it can get moldy on the surface and sometimes a little bit into it. Mold can grow into it, especially that the metal fitting that makes it pivoting. The metal fitting, of course, is cast into it, so along the cast lines, silicone and metal can separate there. It's really a microscopic feature, so mold can grow inside there, in the middle of the nose pads there. It can get really ugly, or just dirt can accumulate there as well. So they discolor, they get dirty. I kept this one really clean, but these need to be replaced, and yeah, it's not done. It's easy fix, yes. Why is it not done after 4 attempts? I don't know. So that's fail number 1. There's 4 more to go. Fail number 2 concerns the stems. Now, if the eyeglasses lie flat on a flat piece of glass, like this is the case, and it's not rocking side to side, either here or here, that's not necessarily a positive good thing, especially that the frame is meant to be bent to fit your skull's geometry and your facial features. Everybody's left and right side is slightly different. The eye sockets in your skulls can be a few millimeters or microscopically longer or wider. The centers of your eye sockets can be up or down off a little bit, just a hair, and the height of your ears can be different, as well as the distance from cornea to ear can be a little bit different. So all of these differences to fit the eyeglasses to your skull's geometry need to be accounted for, and the frame needs to be tweaked a little bit, as well as like adjusted, especially if you have a difference in height. This way the frame needs to be physically bent, so that it's really important that the center of the lens, the geometric center of the lens where your pupil should be, end up actually and be in front of your pupil on both sides. So for this reason this needs a little bit of tweaking. So the fact that this lies flat on a flat sheet of glass, it's not necessarily a good thing, and it's not a hallmark or benchmark of quality. What happened here, what isn't a benchmark of quality either, and what is a fail, is that you can see this stem here is perfectly straight on this side, with the hinge here intact. At the hinge the stem folds one way and also the other way, because this is a dual action hinge. Now on the opposite side, what happened here, if you look at the stem, some idiot stepped on it or something, and the stem starts out here and then it goes up a little bit. This is a high point here, and then it starts going down. The stem itself is nice and straight, and I'm not saying that it shouldn't, I'm saying it could be nice and straight, but the two places where you don't want the stem to be bent is right here at the hinge pin. You don't want to stress the pin, because the hinge itself is just brazed on, made of very very thin metal. It really doesn't need to be jamming here right where it needs to fold, for crying out loud. So it does function, but this is a really worst possible spot to have it bent. Also, they bent the stem's attachment here where it attaches to the frame. It's also bent here. This part of this metal here is brazed onto this metal here, and the two of them brazed together. This brazing is not going to take this kind of torsion or this kind of twisting action that's now it's being introduced here. So the two places where you don't want the stem to be bent is here at the brazing and here at the hinge pin. You can bend the whole stem anywhere along its length to adjust it to your ears and whatever, but don't bend it at the hinge pin. That's where this is bent, of course. So this is fail number 2, these two locations, just both of them. This can be straightened, it's not a tragic issue, but now stretched out metal does not get back to the original size. It's stretched out. This hinge is gonna be jamming or be loose or something. It's prying itself apart. It's not good. And here, if there's a hairline crack introduced there, that needs to be brazed back on, and most eyeglass places don't really prepare for brazing components back on, because for brazing the powder coating needs to be removed, and they don't powder coat the frames, I tell you that. So that's pretty much permanent damage there. Fail number 3 is also permanent damage to some degree, but is of a lesser issue. The left and right lenses are asymmetrical and different now because they bent the frame at another location. You can see that the top of the frame here, which is now the bottom, but this is how this is on a person's face. So the top of the lens here, or the top of the frame here, has a little bit of camber, has a little bit of curvature here, a little hump. Like, it's not like a speed bump on the road, but it has a little bit of camber up here. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. Whereas the other side does not have it anymore. This one is dead flat, and if anything, it's got a dip in it. The reason for this dip, maybe this way easier to film, the reason for this dip is, and you see this crisscrossing here, this is the bent hinge. This is how the bent hinge folds. So it's miserable. Looks like this. So what happened here, why this one is bent down here and this one has a little bit of camber here, is that when they cut this lens, it was a little high here at the corner and here, and there was a slight gap between the top of the lens and the bottom of the frame right here. I could put a sheet of paper through here easily, or 2 or 5, whatever. There was a little bit of gap here. I told them to recut the lens and make it right so that it actually fits the frame. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. This recutting of the lens can be visualized a little bit. That's also why I have this honey. The blank lens looks like this. It's round and it has some curvature to it, and it doesn't have your prescription ground into it yet, but they do that. When that's done, with your pupil's position meticulously noted on it, they have to remove most of the blank, or now polished blank, and they cut it away with a bandsaw and whatever, and then they have to grind it down until it actually fits the frame. They ground too much away from the top of the lens here the first time they fitted it, and it was too high here, and it was gappy here, and I said, fix it, cut another lens. They did not. They bent down the frame, so now as a result the left side is different from the right side. Not by much, it's a microscopic difference. And yes, it is possible to stretch the metal back, but how do you stretch it back the same amount if you want new lenses in it? You can't. It used to be symmetrical, but the other side is not going to be identical to the left side now. You can try and you can get close, but this is another permanent damage that can't really be fixed. You can get close to it, but whatever. So that's fail number 3. Fail number 4 was another lens cutting incident, and it happened on this side. So not only they miscut this side, but they also miscutted this side. This was too large. You see, when the lens is the right size, the lens mounts into the frame by the frame opening, and the frame clamps down the lens with this small screw. There is the small screw. This also needs to be thread locked. Sometimes it comes out, and you can see this is a small gap here where it should be. This is the 2 parts of the frame, so this opens up a little bit, just bends out a little bit. So the small screw here is threaded into this part here, but not into this one. It's only threaded into this part here, and it just runs through this part, and that's how the screw clamps the 2 halves of the frame together and holds the lens in place. There should be a nice and even gap there, but unfortunately these idiots cut the lens, oversized the lens. It's still oversized. It's got the top curvature alright, but it's still slightly oversized, and as a result this line here is not nice and even. There's a V-shaped gap. Sorry about this bent hinge situation here. I'm trying to film it. There, you can see that it's not a nice and even gap. Now that's not a problem, that this is not a nice and even gap, but what is a problem, that because this lens is oversized, it needs extra clamping force to hold the opening half of the frame and the stationary half of the frame together with that small screw. Remember, this was threaded into this part here. Now it's not. They ripped out the original screw, it fell out, and they replaced it with a second screw. The second screw has a larger head. It also has a larger diameter, and because they ripped out the thread from this part of the frame, they had to put a bolt on that they found on a tractor or something like that. You can see that nut, the honking huge nut on it, and you can see that the material for the bolt was crudely cut away, of course, with a pair of diagonal cutters, wire cutters. You can see how the metal was pinched and flattened sideways in these directions. It leaves a sharp edge there with two sharp corners there and there. They didn't have the decency to file it away or hide this honking huge knot. Like I said, it looks like it comes from the tractor. So that's permanent damage, that they ripped the thread out there. Fail number 4. And they replaced it with this vastly ugly, revolting nut and bolt connection there. So that's failure number 4. Failure number 5 has to do with the frame itself is twisted this way. So this side may be clockwise and this one kind of counterclockwise or anti-clockwise depending on where you live. So this is definitely not matching anybody's skull geometry or facial features. Like I said, your pupils could be offset vertically, or your eye sockets could be different left and right, but you can't have a geometric configuration in which one side needs to be twisted one way and the other side the other way. So if you look at the frame itself, if I rotate this, you can see that here on this side the frame hides the lens there, but on the other side it doesn't, because this is rotated further out. If I rotate it forward a little more, now you can see that the lens is visible there but is not there because it's hidden by the frame. And that's why that's how this one is twisted in this direction. Okay, I hope that makes sense. So one way, another way, the frame is twisted in this direction. That can be fixed fairly easily. That's not permanent, but seriously, if your new prescription eyeglasses make your vision blurry, or it's not perfect, or something's bothering you, usually there's one of these geometric reasons why it is the case. So these are the 5 failures. This is why this is a failed product, a towering monument of incompetence. Of course, my reviews on the individual business or businesses that were involved in this multiple failure are on Google Map and elsewhere where I post those reviews, but this here, I hope this helps. So like I said, this can happen to you regardless in any location, and these are some of the features that are the actual benchmark of craftsmanship or lack of.